Alrighty friends, Disney World has some really famous rides that are full of magic, fun, and sometimes thrills. But what about those Disney World rides that you're gonna hate? Yes, there are gonna be a few of them. So let's talk about the Disney World rides you might wanna skip and why. There is so much to see and do here in Disney World, but it's really hard to decide what is worth your time on your next trip. So today we're going to talk about the rides that we think you might hate when you come to Disney World and why you might want to skip them to save time on your next trip. So we are going to go to each of the parks to talk about the top 3 rides at that park that you might be surprised you might hate here in Disney World. And unfortunately, we're going to be spending a lot of time in Tomorrowland today, which I didn't realize until I was walking into Tomorrowland. So to me, it is no surprise that I'm here talking about rides you're gonna hate at what I think should be the most hated ride here in Magic Kingdom, Astro Orbiter. I quite literally could not talk about rides that I hate in Disney World or that I think that you might hate in Disney World without talking about Astro Orbiter. I mean, I can't stand this guy. Anybody who has motion sickness issues or fear of heights will also probably hate this one, I can promise you that. The wait times also can get really long and the entire queue is outdoors, so it might just be another reason you agree that you should hate Astro Orbiter with me. Also, if you have high blood pressure, heart or back or neck problems, or motion sickness issues like I said before, you might want to skip it. Okay, there's one.
And please supervise younger.
Okay, there's 2. Okay. Clearly some younger pilots were in this before. Now I will say another reason that I think you might hate Astro Orbiters, I'm using a Fry cameo to demonstrate, is there's only one seat belt and the person in front sits in your lap and the tallest person sits in the back. And now, do I dislike this? Fry's my friend. I'm having a good time with her. However, if you weren't close like me and Fry or me and Quincy, you probably wouldn't want to do this. So I'd say that it'd be a good reason to hate this.
Yeah, for all those Disney College Program kids out there, don't ride Astro Orbiter on a first date.
Yeah, I highly, highly discourage that. Because then it's just, this is the end of the date.
Like, we're right here.
We're literally, we could not be closer. Our thighs are touching right now. We truly could not be closer. Here we are.
I'm happy it's with you.
I'm happy it's with you too. This is not fun. I do think you will not like it personally.
Oh my gosh, I'm dizzy.
Okay. So now that we've started with my absolute hate, boo, tomato ride here in Disney World, we're gonna go for one that's a little bit surprising, and that's Space Mountain. And what's crazy is I love Space Mountain, but I actually think that you might hate it. So honestly, I hate to say this, you guys, this really hurts me, it hurts my chest, I don't wanna do this, but we're honest with you. We cannot tell you fibs. We want your vacation to be great, and if I'm not honest with you about Space Mountain, there's a potential it could not be great. So sadly, we're talking about a classic, and that is Space Mountain. So Space Mountain is an indoor roller coaster in the dark. It's not a crazy roller coaster, but it's pretty bumpy and it jerks you around quite a bit. Now, one thing I will say for all of these rides that we're gonna talk about, or at least almost all of them, is you need to keep your eyes peeled for a little thing called the red triangle. You guys have talked about it a lot in the comments, and we don't often typically go up and physically show it to you, but today I'm gonna show it here, especially on Space Mountain, but you can keep your eyes peeled. If you ever see this lovely little red triangle, you might want to be a little bit concerned. This is all of the warnings, all of the safety warnings. So anything from high blood pressure, heart, back, and neck problems, motion sickness, any other conditions, or even expectant mothers definitely shouldn't ride. And sadly, Space Mountain is in that category. So while I love Space Mountain, you're gonna hear that announcement constantly, the things that I just said, the high blood pressure, the heart rate, all of those things that I listed, the Space Mountain queue is constantly gonna have that message continuously playing, reminding you, if you have these issues or you might be concerned about that, don't ride. And that little red triangle is the first indication that you might hate a ride here. I will also say the darkness in this ride can be really scary. And I say that as an adult who isn't really scared of the dark. There are just moments in this where you really can't see anything, and then maybe there's a drop, or maybe you suddenly turn left and it's a little bit jarring and a little bit surprising. The ride really tends to jostle people around, which can lead to headaches or even body aches depending on where you sit in the vehicle. Personally, I think the back is the worst. I have come off of Space Mountain at times hurting as a very healthy early 20s person. You know, I'm 24, you would think I would feel okay. it has hurt me in the past, so definitely be cautious about this one. And honestly, in my heart, I never want to be the person that tells you not to ride Space Mountain, but because of all of these things, you might hate it and it might ruin your Disney vacation. So consider what I've talked about with you today, consider that red triangle and maybe skip it. And finally, for the ride you might hate here in Magic Kingdom, we're talking about Magic Kingdom's newest one, Tron, which it's been pretty controversial so far, so maybe you're not surprised to see it on this list, but you might be surprised with what we have to say. So there's actually a lot of reasons that you might not love Tron. If you have a slight fear of heights, of darkness, or even fast launches, this ride might be a major issue for you because it has all three of those things in spades. Like we talked about over at Space Mountain, it also has that red triangle. It also has the same issues with high blood pressure, heart, back, and neck problems, motion sickness, any other conditions that could be aggravated by the adventure, as Disney likes to say. And outside of the ride being just scary on its own and having those same issues as something similar to Space Mountain, another major issue is one of the virtual queue. The ride can have weirdly long wait times even by utilizing that virtual queue, and there have been so many times that I personally have waited over an hour even with using that virtual queue. So if this ride isn't a super high priority on your list, you need to be aware that it could definitely eat up a chunk of your time. And while I love this ride, I don't think it's a must-do for everyone. It's a lot of fun. It's one of the most thrilling rides in Magic Kingdom, but it could actually ruin your vacation if you know that you're scared of these things or you don't want to waste time on it and then you have to, or you choose to. But Magic Kingdom is not the only park with rides that you're definitely gonna hate, so let's head over to Epcot. To continue with the rides that I think you might hate, unfortunately, we have made our way to Epcot. For the first ride that I honestly think most of you will hate here in Epcot, we're gonna talk about Mission Space. Now, Mission Space is a flight simulator ride that takes you to Earth or Mars, depending on if you go on the green, less intense ride, or the orange, more intense ride. Unfortunately though, this girl, especially if we're talking about the orange, more intense ride, is the queen of motion sickness. That is honestly the best way to describe this one. Thanks to the G-forces and spinning on this ride, this is one of the only rides in Disney World that actually offers you a sick bag on the ride and can easily ruin your vacation if you're not careful or if you don't know that this could be a possibility for you. Just like the rides we mentioned over in Magic Kingdom, there is a lovely little red triangle of warning over here for things like high blood pressure, heart, back, or neck problems, motion sickness, or even other conditions that could be aggravated by it. As much fun as it is, if you're not sure or you're a little bit nervous, try green for sure. Do not risk it and do orange unless you are 100% sure you'll be fine, because this can easily take you out on your Epcot day. Now, I will say I absolutely love Mission Space, and I am not someone who tends to get motion sick at all. I really am not. So I can enjoy orange 99.9% of the time. However, there are times that I get on orange and it spins so fast that I kind of feel like I'm having a really bad facelift. Like, you know, as it goes back, you can kind of feel your face go flat. That's how it makes me feel as someone who is not impacted by motion sickness at all. And it just makes me uncomfortable. Kind of feels like there's some pressure crushing down on your chest. It's fun. It is intense, especially for thrill seekers. But if the things I just described don't sound fun to you, maybe skip this one.
Navigator, fire rockets for lunar orbit insertion. Now.
That's me. Whoa! Hello, lunar orbit insertion. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is even more than blasting off.
Welcome to Mars, and welcome to the Astronaut Corps.
Thank you. I feel like I really earned it that time.
Okay.
Now, honestly, I hate to say that this one is on the list at all. It makes me hate that I'm gonna tell you that you might hate Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Because if there was ever a princess of motion sickness, Guardians is gonna take this tiara. This ride does a full 360 spin. It has flashing lights as well as screens, and additionally, people with a fear of darkness might struggle on this one. While I really love this Omni coaster, it is not for everybody. Due to the spinning, the screens, the whole combination of the darkness, everything about it just makes this one a little bit tough for people. Now, if you've never been on Guardians, I strongly suggest giving it a try, but if you are concerned about motion sickness, sadly, this might be one that you need to skip. And honestly, outside of causing physical ailments for reasons that you might hate this ride, another reason that you might hate this ride is it's kind of hard to get on. So if you don't know,
To get on Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, you can't just stand in a normal line like other rides at Walt Disney World. You only have 2 ways that you can get in line for this ride. The first is through the virtual queue system. So the virtual queue system has 2 drops a day, one at 7 a.m. and one at 1 p.m., where you get on the My Disney Experience app and you try to join that virtual queue. Now, unfortunately, almost everyone else going to Epcot that day is going to try to do the exact same thing, so it can fill up pretty quickly, sometimes in less than a minute. Because of that, if you don't get into the virtual queue, the only other way to get onto the Guardians ride right now is if you purchase an individual Lightning Lane. Now, depending on crowds, this price can vary, but sometimes you just don't want to pay an additional fee to ride one of the rides at Disney World. So unfortunately, if you're not really quick on that virtual queue system and you don't want to pay for it, you can't even get onto Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's just another reason people really might not like this ride. It's a little bit more stress added to your vacation, plus it could make you sick. So as much as I love this ride, it might not be one for you, and you probably should consider skipping it.
Now, lastly, for rides that I think you're gonna hate, I'm sad to say that I'm adding our friend Remy to our list. Now, this one does add to our continuing discussions of motion sickness, but really it's just because of those 3D glasses that make this one a little bit not super palatable for everybody. However, that's really the only issue here. There is no big red triangle of warning. It's pretty tame. It's just the motion sickness part. And if you're concerned about that, maybe consider taking the glasses off. All right, for the next ride that you're gonna hate, we have made our way over to Animal Kingdom, and I hate to say it, but you're probably gonna hate Flight of Passage for these reasons.
All right, Flight of Passage is a flight simulation ride where you get to ride on the back of a Banshee through the Valley of Moara and Pandora. It's really incredible. There's some amazing smells, sights, and experiences on this one. And while it might be one of my favorites, and it might be one of your favorites, there are reasons that people are not gonna like this one. So sadly, there's actually a few reasons why you might not like Pandora or might not even be able to try it out. Flight of Passage is honestly incredible. However, it's such a good simulator that if you're afraid of heights, it might be a real problem. Luckily for me, it's not too overwhelming, but I have had moments where I will look around the room, away from the screen, and I will realize exactly what's happening, and it is nerve-wracking, especially if you're scared of heights. To continue on with the conversation we've had in the last few parts, if you struggle with motion sickness, this is also going to be a pretty unfortunate ride for you sometimes. Between the use of the screens and the 3D glasses, this one can be sadly fairly nauseating.
Soon, you're going to have a chance to undertake an amazing Navi Rite of Passage, riding on the back of a Banshee by being genetically matched and linked to an avatar.
All right, so Fry is here with me. She's demonstrating. One thing to note is that these ride vehicles do not accommodate all body sizes. They do have a back restraint as well as a restraint around your calves, very similar to Tron over in Magic Kingdom. I will say, if this is something you're concerned about or something you're nervous about, there is a test vehicle at the front of the ride that we highly recommend asking cast members about before
Now, I will say I absolutely love Flight of Passage, but you can't ignore all of those things, and there's the red triangle of warning that we've talked about outside of Flight of Passage as well. So there's a lot of things. There's the motion sickness, there's fear of heights, you might not be able to be accommodated on this ride. There's a handful of things that just make it so you're probably gonna hate this ride if any of those things apply to you. Now, I will say for the fear of heights issue, if you're on the ride and you realize maybe it is a little bit too overwhelming, it's something that you weren't totally prepared for, I highly recommend keeping your eyes firmly on the screen, maybe taking your glasses off though. Don't look around you, especially if you're scared of heights. It will make it worse. That's what's happened to me. The only times I've ever been overwhelmed on this ride or a little bit nervous is when I have looked around and off the screen and looked at the other ride vehicles. So highly recommend maybe don't do that. With Flight of Passage, you're gonna have those same issues. Anyone with high blood pressure, heart, back, or neck problems, this all could potentially be an issue for you guys. And I don't wanna talk you out of riding Flight of Passage. I don't want you to hate it, but you might. So this one might not be that surprising, but another one I think that you're probably gonna hate here in Animal Kingdom is It's Tough to Be a Bug. While a lot of people, myself included, actually really enjoy It's Tough to Be a Bug, this one can be tough for adults and kiddos alike. If you have issues with darkness, insects, the thought of kind of creepy crawlies, maybe even being poked in the back, hint, hint, this might not be the best show for you. If you don't know, this show is about how tough it is to be a bug and how important it is to our environment and even just to our daily lives in ways that we wouldn't know. Unfortunately though, maybe some spiders drop over top of you, maybe the room goes dark, maybe you get, you know, quote unquote stung, just really poked in the back. There's a lot of things that kiddos do not like about this show. There's some smoke, there's some jump scares. A lot of kiddos don't like it. I have seen parents take their kids out mid-show many times. The show, It's Tough to Be a Bug, actually takes place inside the Tree of Life here in the base of it. And so a lot of people want to be able to kind of see the tree up close, get a good look at the carvings, at the plant life, everything around the tree. And you know, you can do exactly what I'm doing right now. So feel free to walk through here, really admire the tree, take all of it in, and then maybe just walk through these ropes and head back outside. Now, even right now, this is the waiting area between shows, and as you can kind of see, it's pretty dark in here, and there are also lots of loud bug noises. For example, Fry does not like this show. She does not do it unless we absolutely have to. She doesn't like bugs, so even just the sound of the bugs alone bother her. When we started this video, I know for a fact that the one ride you knew would be on this list is this one right here, which is Dinosaur. I mean, look, you see that warning sign? Let's get into why that's here. So Dinosaur is a ride where you hop in a time river and it takes you back in time to find an iguanodon. Unfortunately though, this is easily the scariest ride in all of Disney World. And honestly, adults and kids alike agree. I mean, there's a whole warning sign. This is one of the only rides in Disney World that literally has an entire warning sign. And why is that? Well, there's a few reasons. For example, it's really dark. There's sections of the ride that is completely in pitch black. There's dinosaur growls, there's flashing lights, there's smoke at some points. There's a lot of reasons people will not enjoy this one. There's even some jump scares.
Identify!
Carnotaurus.
Definitely not our dino. Go, go, go!
So I might love Dinosaur, It's Tough to Be a Bug, and Flight of Passage, but you might not, for all the reasons we already talked about. But we have one more park to go, so let's head over to Hollywood Studios to talk about all the rides you're gonna hate there too. Alrighty friends, we've made it over to Hollywood Studios to talk about the rides that you're gonna hate here too. And sadly, we're talking about one of the classics, Rock and Roller Coaster. And there's a few reasons why you might hate it. So as much as I love Rock and Roller Coaster and as fun as I have on it, there's a lot of people who don't like this one for a lot of reasons. One of them being the incredibly fast launch at the beginning. You go 0 to 60 in just a few seconds. It's incredibly fast. And as exciting as that is, it's also a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if you have smaller kiddos. Another thing, there are inversions. You go upside down. It's pretty shaky. You're also in the dark for a lot of the ride. The entire ride is inside, and the only lights are neon lights that kind of light up as you pass. So majority of it is dark. Because of all of those things, it can be pretty scary for anyone, not just kiddos, but especially adults. Another reason that adults might not like it, or kiddos as well, is if you're in the back, it jostles you a little bit more. You're a little bit more shaken up. It's a little bit more smooth in the front. So if that's something that you'd like to avoid, maybe consider asking to sit towards the front, or maybe just don't ride it that day. Another issue people might have with this one is there are flashing lights as you go throughout the ride. So if that's something you're sensitive to, definitely be aware of that. And of course, just like we've talked about with other things, heart, back, and neck problems, no expectant mothers, high blood pressure, all that same jazz that's on our red triangle warning, you're gonna apply it here too. So we've talked about Rock and Roller Coaster, why you might hate it, why you might love it. Those things might sound like tons of fun and great to you. Another one that you might hate, very similar to me, is right next door, which is the Hollywood Tower Hotel, the Tower of Terror. So if you don't know, the Tower of Terror is an elevator drop ride here in Hollywood Studios themed to the Twilight Zone show. It has impeccable theming. It is one of the most popular rides here in Hollywood Studios, and it is fear-inducing.
So there's actually a lot of reasons, in my opinion, why you might be scared of the Hollywood Tower Hotel or Tower of Terror. The main one being fear of heights. If you're anything like me, if you struggle with heights, this one is a doozy. It takes you up to the top of the tower here, opens the doors, and you can see all of Hollywood Studios, which is just, it's a lot. It's a little nerve-wracking. And if you're anything like me, it just makes this ride that much more overwhelming at times. But it's not just that. A lot of the ride happens in the dark. So if you struggle with a fear of darkness, that's going to be an issue. In addition to flashing lights, there are times when lights will flash at you. And in addition to struggling with the lights, with the fear of heights, with the darkness, there's also the added fear, the added terror, if you will, of those free fall drops. Now, I say free fall, but really the free fall is kind of in quotations. You are actually not free falling. Fun fact, Imagineering is actually pulling you down. So you actually go faster than gravity would take you if you were free falling. So all of that combined, it's just really kind of nerve-wracking for a lot of people. So another thing about the Tower of Terror, within reason, you are in an enclosed space. It's pretty tight. It's not that bad, but if you don't like sitting super close to strangers and it's just not something you're super comfortable with, this could potentially be applicable. So if you're anything like me, or any of the things that we just talked about maybe sound a little bit intimidating, or just like not something that you want to experience on the day you're in Hollywood Studios, consider skipping this ride that I think lots of people should hate. All right, now for our last ride that I think you're gonna hate here in Hollywood Studios, you might be a little bit surprised to see this one on the list after our first two more intense ones, but this one is Star Tours. It's different than the first two. That's true. All right, so if you have not been on Star Tours, the adventure continues. This ride is a flight simulation ride to a certain degree. You get to go through different experiences within the crazy galaxy that is Star Wars. Unfortunately, though, there are a few reasons you might hate this one. Luckily, I don't know those reasons personally. I'm just going to tell you about them because I love this ride. So I'm sorry to tell you that you might hate it. Honestly, it's, like we've mentioned before multiple times throughout this video, motion sickness. Sadly, Star Tours is very nauseating for lots of people. I have had friends who have been honestly down for the count after a ride on Star Tours. As much fun as it is, I don't think Star Tours is worth ruining your day potentially. And it is really nauseating. If you decide to get on the ride and try it out, just be prepared for that possibility, but also know if you start feeling kind of bad on the ride, just take your glasses off, close your eyes, and it'll be over in just a few minutes. I will say that I think it is a lot of fun, but there's also a lot of turbulent motion. There's a lot of flashing lights. In addition to just the motion sickness aspect of it, kind of jostles you around. It might be a little bit surprising, and there are times on Star Tours where even I am a little bit surprised by how hard it throws you around. Again, it's a lot of fun, but not necessarily worth ruining your day over. Now that we've talked about 3 different rides in every single Disney park that I think that you're probably gonna hate, let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any that you hate that I didn't mention and why you might hate it. If you guys like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Now go check out all the things you should never do over in Hollywood Studios. I'll see you there.